Oh, yeah. Fish on. Yeah. Oh, my God. Good night. Look at that tank. That's a toad, brother. Golly.
What's going on, Mr. Hoover? It is our same bat time, same bat channel.
Yeah, it is. We're back on track. And this knucklehead just said to me, "Is this live?" And I said, "Yeah." He said, "Like live, live?" I said, "Yeah." He's like live. I'm like, "It is live." So,
I think that's a new title.
I didn't realize this in the green room when we were getting ready. What?
Great minds think alike. That's what it is. Oh, he's wearing a deck shirt. Yeah.
I got mine out of the dirty clothes though because I wanted to wear it, but I hadn't washed it, and you can see it's a little wrinkled right there.
So tell us a little bit of what you've been doing, man. You got Austin with you now, so I mean, you got to be doing a bunch of filming and editing.
We are banging. We're learning. We're trying out new shooting styles, shooting techniques, editing techniques. It was so hot today in Alabama that by the time I got done with some meetings in the morning, we pretty much just sat in the trailer all day and worked on edits and video shoot lists for tomorrow. And so the goal is like to do a better job than I did of maintaining balance. So I'm trying to get him on like a shoot 3 days, edit 2, off 2, shoot 2 days, edit 3, off 2 kind of a schedule. And there's some road trips where we have to do like 10, 12, 14 days in a row, in which case I'll try to bank up some time off after that. And deer season starts in Tennessee this weekend. So he's going to take the kayaks and go chase some deer on public land with a good friend of his named Kalen. I'm going to stay down here, start shooting. I shot my bow twice so far this year. So I told him this morning, I'm like, I just don't think I'm ready for the Tennessee season, man. And plus it's still hot as donut grease. So I'm just going to stay down in Alabama, get some gear organized, rig out a couple things on the kayak, and I'll start shooting and be ready for the Alabama opener, which is October 15th. So,
got you. So in Tennessee, it's literally Tennessee starts right now next week.
Saturday, this coming Saturday.
So that's the actual season, not the short season?
24th? No, short season was 3 weeks ago. 24th.
Bow season. Yeah, bow season starts. So
gotcha. Well, it looks like you guys are going to be putting out some more content for some other.
Yeah, we launching the second channel: camping, hunting, off-road, cooking, hiking, and overland. Kind of the Chad Hoover outdoor, the CHO. I haven't sold myself on this, but I want to say it's Showtime, but it's kind of, see, you know what I'm saying? But it's also at the same time, it's kind of one of them, it's so corny that it's catchy. Kind of, I don't know. You guys comment in the comment section below. Let me know what you think about the call to action for the Chad Hoover Outdoors channel. It's Showtime. But so, I can't even really say it with a straight face.
That's the problem. Every time you go to say it, you won't be able to say it.
Speaking of a straight face, what is that red? Is that a jack-o'-lantern or a pumpkin or something behind you? Like, what is that on your? Yeah, what is that?
So that my wife snuck this in there. It's actually a pumpkin.
Oh, so you think I didn't? You don't think? Oh, okay. But it's red when it's in the red light, so it's a red pumpkin.
It's a red pumpkin, yeah.
Cool. All right, man. Well, listen, we got a special guest tonight. I've been friends with this guy for, I'm gonna say, close to 15 years, maybe even a little longer. He's probably gonna know better than me and correct me. Easily over 10, because he came and fished with us when Austin was 7. How old are you now? 22. Yeah, so I've known him for a couple of years longer than that, like somewhere between 15 and 17 years. And yeah, you know, we're like brothers. We haven't always agreed on everything. We've always had a mutual respect. I was the motor guy for a long time. He was the no motor guy for a long time, and still might be. I'm not 100% sure, but he's the guy behind the no mo, you know, kayak fishing tournament. I'll let him get into all that. Let's just get him on here, man. Let's talk about my friends and the folks yeah. So Chris, was I wrong? You were the proprietor of the Nomo kayak fishing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I started that 14 years ago. So kind of along that same kind of timeline. Yeah, absolutely. And this year was the first year in 14 years that we did not do the Nomo. Had to step away. You know how life happens and stuff, right? So
do I know?
Yeah. So thanks for bringing up a sensitive subject, Chad.
I mean, that's what I'm here for, bro.
I'm teasing.
What was beautiful about that tournament is, you know, in the early days of kayak fishing, we all were like anti-motor, you know, It was our thing. And
well, there just weren't a lot of motor options either,
Yeah.
right? Like that was kind of the nature of it.
but we were also like paddle the hard way.
Yeah,
We're
of
kayak
course.
fishermen. It was like, and where my mind got changed, and we're not going to derail the whole show to talk about that, but where my mind got changed is when I actually met the folks from Torquedo. Then it was kind of almost like a God thing. I ended up stationed in Stuttgart, Germany, and the founder of Torquedo called me and was like, "Hey, I heard you're in German." Well, you know how Germans talk. If they're speaking German and they're just having a casual conversation, they literally sound like a scene from like a Hitler movie. They're like, "Von Heigen, sind Heigen, Vijaden," and they might be like, "Hey, you want to go get a sandwich?" But then the minute that they start speaking English, they're like, "Oh, how you doing? Yeah," it's like they go from like Third Reich
Angry.
to
Yeah.
on from Saturday Night Live like that. So he calls me up, "Hi, Chad, I heard you were in Germany." And I was like, "Yeah." "I would love for you to come to the factory." And I was like, "What the?" I thought it was somebody jacking with me. So I ended up going to the factory and I said, "Look, I'll help you guys promote the motor under one condition. If you help me get these kayaks motorized so that the people that need them will have them." They're like, "We're in." And here we are, I don't know, 12, 13 years later. Still the motor guy, still pushing it, still paddle more than all the people that complain about the motors most of the time anyway. But there needed to be little niches in certain things. And, you started that no-mo tournament and it was perfect. It was like, hey, if you want a no motor option, there are tournaments like that tournament. And we promoted it for years. And yeah, man. So anyway, great job on that. Or do you think this year was the a year that you skipped, or was it the last year and then it won't be anymore after that? Or what's your thought? Is that too much of a Band-Aid thing?
Yeah, no, it's a great question because there's, it was always a charity based tournament. So there's a lot of people. It was a really special event for them because we raised money for Make-A-Wish Foundation. So great charity, does great work. So yeah, I think I miss it. I know there's people out there that miss it for a variety of reasons. So yeah, it'd be a shame if it never came back. So who knows what the future holds.
So if there's somebody out there watching that wants that thing to come back, reach out to Chris and you can pick up the baton and run with it because he's got another baton to run with now. We're going to talk about that a little bit later in the show. So the last time the three of us were together, we're actually not together right now, but the last time the three of us were together was in Canada, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, there's been national championships in between.
National championships.
Yeah, but you're right. Like where we spent time together. Yeah.
We just like, so to give you guys a little bit of background on the whole Canada thing, I get a call from my producer. "Hey, we've got an opportunity to go kayak fishing in one of the most ridiculous places in the world. You're going to be catching trophy pike. You're going to be, in an unbelievable setting, northern Saskatchewan, up near the tundra, blah, blah, blah." And they said, "Who do you want to take?" I said, "Austin." My producer's like, "Dude, you take Austin on everything. Like we need an actual guest." And I said, "Well, shit, that guy right there, that guy." I called him, said, "Dude, any chance you could go to Canada? You're practically Canadian already. You play hockey, say a lot.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You already
Look at my last name. Yeah.
You could pass for Canadian." And he's like,
Right.
"Dude, I'm in." And we were on the Wilderness Systems Pro staff together. That was kind of one of the prerequisites. And we got some kayak shipped up to Canada. We went up there and ironically enough, we went up there and sweated and grinded hard for, and dealt with more insects than I've ever seen in my life. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, I think the three of us one time combined for 117 fish on topwater in an hour between the three of us. And it was only because we were catching so many fish on topwater. We were like, we should start counting. So everybody that caught a fish would just yell out a number. Then the next person would yell out a number. And we were just cycling through these, 35 to 37 inch pike all on topwater. It was insane. We had a good time. And we went and caught northern grayling. In fact, this knucklehead was casting with a fly rod for about 4.5 hours. This is one of those stories you can't make up. And if he wasn't here to verify it, you guys would think I was a tall tale. He was casting a fly rod, pretty much beat the water into submission. I looked over.
Double haul too, right? Like not like just floating, double haul. Yeah.
Like float it through the pool right there, man. Mm-hmm. He was putting it right where it needed to go. He might have been like that far off, but just doing good swings of the fly line, putting it right in the pool, pulling it through the eddy the whole night. We changed flies a few times, got a couple of rises, just couldn't get these grayling to eat. So he goes, man, I'm sick of this crap. My shoulder's killing me here. And he handed me the fly rod.
This is my Band-Aid.
This
Just
is
open yours up nice and open mine.
the fly rod. And again, if I'm lying, I'm dying. And I got 2 witnesses right here to back me up. I pulled the drag off, laid the fly out, whipped it through the thing. A grayling come up and ate it. I set the hook. And on the very next cast after he handed me the fly rod, I caught, to this day, my only northern grayling. And then he had sit there.
Arctic grayling. But yeah.
What's that?
Arctic grayling.
Arctic, yeah. Arctic northern.
Yeah.
Arctic, right, yeah. Arctic grayling, one of the most beautiful fish to date that I've ever caught. And his whole thing when he was going up there is like, I want to catch one of those Arctic grayling, which, he's 22 years old. So we've still got time. But I was, I'm old. So I got the fish god smiled on me. And man, we went down that river after that in the kayaks and just caught big pike after big pike after big pike and saw moose and we saw deer and coyotes.
I'll let you finish the story, but you're leaving out the best part of that story. And it'll trigger your memory. So he's right. We went up there to Wollaston Lake Lodge, right? This massive lake, and it was pike and walleye and all that kind of stuff. And this was a side trip that we did, right? Where we went to this river and we put the kayaks in and paddled upstream, and we portage, we paddled some more in portage. And it was you, me, Austin, Will, yep. And then our guide. And we're out in the middle of nowhere. I think he had a spot maybe, but otherwise we were like off the beaten path, way up there, and Arctic grayling, and there's pike and other stuff in there too. But we're way back, like bushwhacking, and we were spending the whole day doing this. Well, and we took everything with us, right? But it was just for the day, and for whatever reason, what's that?
It's like, but a full day.
Yeah, exactly.
Because it's like 20 hours of daylight, so we were out for like a 16-hour day, like on the river.
We had to take food with us and all that kind of stuff, and we were bushwhacking quite a bit. So, anyways, we're back there, right? And for whatever reason, I don't know what you were trying to do, but you had a machete, and you were, I don't know, you were cutting or doing something. And our guide, who's, was a great guide, knew his stuff, really energetic, enthusiastic, like wanted to help and do everything. And he was in there engaged, doing something, and you're in there doing something. And sure as shit, it was just one of those like mental slips. And something happened. I don't even remember exactly what it was, but you cut his arm, right? You remember that?
It was
machete.
Will. It wasn't the guy. It was Will.
Oh, Will did that. Okay. Yeah. Okay, so Will had machete, sliced Aaron, I think was his name, our guide, and
no, it was me with the machete.
But you caught Will.
No, I gave it to Will, and Will, the guy asked a question, and Will turned it at the same time. And he cut him with the forearm.
Oh, that's right.
I'm like,
and
how did I hand you the machete for 1 second,
and
you already about took off our guide's forearm?
Yeah, that it was like this, like we were having a ton of fun, and we're catching fish, and we're joking around and screwing around, and it was really light-hearted and just fun, and it was hard, but and then it was like it took a turn, right, of like, oh shit.
I'm glad you brought this up for 2 reasons. One, I had forgotten about it, and 2, I'm a real stickler for bringing first aid kits fishing.
Yep.
And a lot of people go, yeah, whatever, and a lot of people know me as kind of like the PFD Nazi. And I'd be like, yeah, whatever. But I've been in some just normal situations that just turn horribly bad really quick. I've also fished with him and other kids. When you got kids around, you have to be prepared for every possible scenario. And that was one of those trips where had I not had a first aid kit and been able to take care of this dude's arm, it would have been a major problem. But we broke the first aid kit out. We took care of him. I don't know if everybody in the trip remembers this, but I said, hey, you guys go ahead. And I hung back. I actually put 2 stitches in the dude's arm because the gash was so big that if you didn't sit there and keep putting direct pressure on it, it was like gushing. And I opened it up, irrigated it to make sure that it wasn't a vein or something like that. I mean, an artery. It was just a really good superficial cut of a bunch of veins. I opened it up, I irrigated it. And I was like, look, dude, we're going to need to get a couple stitches in this. And he was like, what are you going to do that with? And I was like, I just happen to carry a kit stitching people up. And he was like, what the heck? But yeah, the way it happened was Will needed to cut a zip tie on his seat of his
exactly
kayak.
what it was. Yep.
He's like, do you have a knife? I'm like, you don't? He goes, no, I'm a Canadian. I don't have a knife or a gun or anything or any, whatever. So I was like, here, man, just cut it with this. And I handed him the thing. So he reaches down and he cuts this. And back to your question, you said, I don't know why you had a machete with you. By the way, I always have a machete with me. Technically, why wouldn't you have a machete with you?
I just pictured you like walking around like this, like, hey, everybody.
So I hand the machete.
Can I cut your fishing line for you? What can I do? Slice some branches?
And I've got his boat heel hooked. A heel hook is when somebody paddles up to you, you take your heel and hook the side of their boat. So I've got his boat heel hooked, and we're going down through this little slow moving thing. And the guy paddles up and touches Will on the shoulder, and he's just like, "Oh hey," and just stick out, and just, "Oh dude, oh you got me." And they're Canadian, so they're like super nice. He's like, "Oh, shoot, you really got me there. I might have got a lot of blood on your knife there."
I apologize for putting my arm in the way of your machete.
So sorry for you cutting me. I'm so sorry. And he was like, apologize. Even when I pushed you guys ahead and I was sewing his arm up, he was apologizing. Oh, sorry. My bad. I should have known better. I'm like, no, Will's a goober. He, it's not your fault, dude. But yeah, it was one of those Tonto blade machetes that has the angle point on it. And that thing was sharp.
Yeah.
So yeah, I forgot all about that.
Yeah. It changed. It went from like just a best day on the water and having fun and we're joking around and to like, oh shit.
Oh, he bled through the first two bandages we put on. He just bled through them. It was like, oh man.
Yeah.
Man.
Yeah. I didn't want to do the tourniquet thing and have a guy lose his arm to us, but we got it all fixed up. And
yeah. So anyways, we buried his body up by the river and never told anybody.
So
that was a cool trip. We were taking these old school buses down these old logging roads, and one of the caveats for that trip was I wanted to catch an Arctic grayling, and I wanted to try to have him catch an Arctic grayling. So we kind of built that whole custom trip into the trip, and the guide and the lodge owner was like, "You're just not going to catch an Arctic this late." Like that was their whole thing. It's like, if you'd have been here early in the season, you could have caught him. So I just remember that night when we went into dinner, like, yeah, we caught an Arctic. Like, no, you didn't. And it was like, well, fortunately for us, we've got video. And the guy was super, stoked that we caught it. And the guide was even finished out the whole trip, like super.
Yeah.
Me and you were grinding trying to catch fish from the kayak. And we were so slow towing the kayaks with the tinny boat to all the spots. By the time we'd get there, all of the other clients had already like beat it up. Yeah. So one day, I remember we were fishing and we were catching good, 37 to 41-inch fish. And I told the guy, I was like, why don't you take this knucklehead and go see if you can find a big fish? And of course, they leave, and 30 minutes later, they come back with tall tails of like all these big fish. And I think he's BSing. And
on the fly, too. Awesome.
42, 44, a 45, and all of them on a fly rod. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. But it was a great trip. I can't wait to go back up there, to be honest with you. We were just talking about it as soon as the pandemic stuff levels out and all that kind of stuff. I want to make that trip again. That trip was fun.
Yeah, in fact, I follow them, Wollaston Lake Lodge still, and Randy, the owner, and they struggled through the pandemic because obviously the Canadian border was closed and most of their customers and clients are from the States. So, and I'm sure it's not just for them. I'm sure all these different, Canadian lodges and outposts and stuff really struggled the past couple of years. So.
And so if you can support those lodges and outfitters and things like that that survived and help them make a rebound, Yeah. Those kind of trips are like the best bonding trips, like in the world. Like by the time we left there, you were like Uncle Chris, you know what I'm saying, to this knucklehead. I remember we were staying in the cabin and it looked like a Bass Pro Shop bomb went off in there, Every flat surface was covered with reels and lures. And I remember I got up to pee in the middle of the night one time when I was walking and I stepped on a piece of fishing line, caught my foot on the other piece, jerked a reel off of the counter, and it hit me in my temple going about Mach 4, about knocked me out. But that's the kind of stuff that happens like at a fish camp. You know what I'm saying? So yeah.
Right on.
That was crazy. So a lot of you guys don't know this, but like back in the day, like Chris was the first like poster boy for kayak fishing. He was on the cover of Kayak Angler magazine, was a relatively small guy, so he could catch these little fish and hold them up and they just looked monstrous, which I had the reverse opposite affliction. But just a hell of an angler, just a hell of a nice guy. As you can see there, he's like smiling like a chat. That's how you meet. When you meet Chris LeMeissure, he's just smiling. He's like happy, and comes down to Virginia Beach for one of the Tidewater Kayak Angler events, and it's just like all happy, like, dude, let's go fishing. And I remember me, you, and Austin were like wade fishing on the point where the current was coming by, just catching a flounder one cast, a redfish one cast, a speckled trout another cast, and you're like, hey, let's go up and hit the bridge. So we paddled up to the bridge, and we're just sitting there wrecking the fish. And yeah, it was some good times, man. Back in the day when everything was simple, before kayak fishing got so, commercialized, I guess is a way of saying it. Back in the day, it was like we were all a bunch of like, I guess we still kind of are, but like a bunch of rebels. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I guess it's still.
It was like the counterculture of fishing, right? It was like they would look down at us, like, oh, the kayak fishing guys, and we were proud, and
you fish out of that thing,
right.
That whole.
Yeah, exactly.
What's funny is we ran into that same attitude. We were just up in Two Rivers, Wisconsin. Was that 2 weeks ago? 2 weeks ago. And this guide walked in, and I forgot. Oh, Chuck Earl, who we were fishing with, had a kayakfishingerie.com shirt on. And the guy didn't say anything when he was there, but Chuck went across the street to pick something up. We were literally staying. You could throw a baseball and hit the house we were staying in. And so we went over there to get some traditional Wisconsin cheese curds. That's what Southerners do when we're in Wisconsin, is we've got to go get a spotted cow and we've got to get some cheese curds, right? Like that was the thing. So this guy's like, oh, you kayakers, oh, you guys are a bunch of freaking hosers and losers. And every morning when I'm running out, I almost run over one of you guys. Y'all need to get the hell off the water. And it just turned into that. And it reminded me of kind of like the early days of kayak fishing, when it's like, get out of my water, get out of my boat ramp. Why are you here? Why are you fishing that thing? That kind of thing. But yeah, it's there's still a lot of pockets of that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, but so many of those like hardcore boat people or traditional, boat anglers, I think since the past 15, 18 years or whatever, have come around and have a kayak, right? You know what I mean? In their garage, and like understand like the benefits of it and everything. So there's maybe less of that. Yeah, the industry's changed and evolved, but maybe there's less of that now. It still exists, like you said, but.
Well, I also think that now we're running in wolf packs of like 30 and 40. So you probably don't want to run your mouth when you might end up back at the boat ramp with 30 or 40 kind of sketchy looking kayak anglers. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
There's definitely some sketchy looking characters in our crowd, Not everybody's as all polished and like male modelly looking as this dude right over here.
Yeah. Can you give him permission to smile? Austin,
Yeah.
you can smile. It's okay.
But yeah, what's funny is I'm going to these places these days and trying new things. Like, I don't really troll, but I went up there and I was like, the reason I don't troll is there's no skill involved. That was my mindset, right? But I'm out there trolling through these schools of kings. I'm trolling right past them. I can see them on the graph, like reacting to my bait, but not eating it. And then these Yankees that know what they're doing are trolling right through them and like, fish on, fish on, fish on. I'm like, okay, fine. There is something to this. There is some skill involved in it. He's actually editing the video right now, and it's actually coming out really well. And another little milestone is on the way up. I got to stop and fish this little pond in Columbus, Indiana, where I caught the fish on the cover of my book and caught a few fish and took some of the photos from it. So it was just a really cool kind of nostalgia trip. It was a road trip for us after being down here in Alabama grinding in the southern heat for 10 days, and just to go do something different. Not a lot of pressure. It was fun. Salmon has literally become one of my favorite foods, especially since I did the carnivore diet. And that's a big part of how I eat now, is I eat carnivore. And salmon is, I could literally eat salmon every day. And so when we got up there, this kid, Austin, who Duke from Catch was friends with, had gone out and caught a bunch. And so he did the, like, wrap the salmon fillet, the coho fillet up in tin foil, put some butter and lemon pepper in it. And God, it was just unreal. So yeah, man. And you've literally been, you know, touting the salmon fishing. Salmon, dude, you got to get up here. You got to get up here. And I remember we pulled up to the T, where we pulled up to take a left to go from Montauk to Two Rivers. And Austin was like, what is, that's the lake? And I was like, yeah. He's like, dude, it looks like an ocean. I'm like, yeah, that's why they call it the Great Lakes. And you're also the founder of Great Lakes Kayak Fishing, right?
Yeah, Kayak Fish the Great Lakes. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, Kayak Fish the Great Lakes. Yeah, that's right. And so, yeah. So anyway, man, I'm going to shut up for a little minute. Let you talk about you and how you got into kayak fishing. And you're literally one of the OGs. Like, there's the OG2s, what I call them. Like they were in that 10, 12-year mark. And then there's some of us that were in that 15, 20-year, 25-plus-year wave. But I remember when I started promoting kayak fishing and writing articles and doing all that stuff, you were like the guy. You're right there in the mix. I think we were both writing for Kayak Angler at the same time. You had made the cover a couple times. And, yeah, just, we're investing in the sport, getting websites going, getting forums going. A lot of these young folks don't even know what a forum is.
Yeah.
So talk about how you got into kayak fishing, man, some of the things that you've done, and then we're going to talk about this here and, what's on your shirt there. But
well, my feelings are hurt because you were like 15 years, 14 years, and it was September 23rd, 2004. No, I'm just kidding. I don't know. Yeah, we know each other for 15 years or something.
Damn, bro.
Yeah, I know, right?
Damn.
Our first date.
That day.
Okay. Yeah, but you're right, and that's what started it for me. Back then, kayak fishing was a novelty, kind of like you said, right? And for me, I was out of college and didn't have a ton of money, and wanted to take that next natural step from shore fishing to get out there and fish more water and do more things, and the kayak was perfect for that. But back then, we were buying wreck kayaks and outfitting them for fishing, right? My first was a sit inside. It was actually a Wilderness Systems Pungo. And people were taking ocean kayaks and things like that were just plain wreck kayaks. And then, add rod holders and fish finders was a big deal, right? Transducers, you'd glue it inside the hull and shoot through the plastic and all that kind of stuff. And the community, it was really cool. It was very tight. But it was thin. There wasn't a lot of us out there. It was like a brotherhood, and it still is really to this day in some ways. But I would go to the TKAA tournaments every fall because that was the only kayak fishing tournaments around, right? I mean, sure, there were some in Texas at the same time, but from Michigan, it a 10, 12-hour drive down to Virginia Beach. And that was just and it was very well done, and it was multi-species, and it was saltwater, something I only get to do a handful of times a year. So it was just awesome. And that's where we got to spend more time together and hang out and just do all kinds of fun stuff like that. It was awesome.
Well, and that's kind of the way it was back then. I think I went to the third NOMO tournament. Mm-hmm. You had come to the TKA tournament. I went to the third NOMO tournament. But everybody would go to every tournament because there was only 5 or 6. There was Jacksonville, there was TKAA, there was Jamaica Bay, there was your tournament, and then there was a couple of good sized ones in Texas. And that's before Ride the Bull and some of the Louisiana stuff started. And then it started to kind of snowball from there. But yeah, back then it was like the whole country was connected because there was this group of us that were doing it. But in all of our individual areas, we were the only ones. Mm-hmm. It's funny you mentioned the Pungo. I actually ran into a lady at the boat ramp here in Alabama today that had the kayak that was my first kayak was an Ocean Kayak Frenzy that I bought from a guy that used it to paddle shark baits out. Yep. I think I used that thing 3 times, and I flipped it 6 times while using it 3 times. And then I remember going to a pawn shop and I traded it up for a Scupper Pro from Ocean Kayak. I ran into a lady today at the boat ramp here that had a Scupper Pro from Ocean Kayak. And I was like, man, I used to take that thing to the oil rigs in Texas. And right now, I don't know that I could paddle 100 yards without flipping that damn thing. But I used to take that out through the surf, out to the rigs and catch amberjack and freaking sharks and all kinds of crazy stuff out of that boat. So
yeah, I think if you ask Rick or Kayak Kevin what their favorite paddling kayak is, and maybe they still use them, is that Scupper Pro, right?
Yeah,
it's like a cult following, I think.
Really good boat, man. I asked the lady, I said, you don't have any intentions on selling that boat, do you? She said, do you have kids? And I said, yeah. She goes, you want to sell me one of them? I said, you want to do a trade? No, but she's like, no, I've had this boat for 17 years, 18 years. I'm never going to trade it. It'll go to one of my grandkids or whatever. I was like, okay, well, if you change your mind. But it was also yellow, so I didn't know if I could paddle it really, except in the dark. But it was just kind of cool to see that like today. And I haven't seen one in, I mean, golly, probably 12, 15 years, easy.
So when you say yellow kayak, first thing I think of, sorry, we're gonna do a side story here. And I want to ask Randy. The rumor is, right, and it's 100% unsubstantiated, but yellow kayaks, supposedly manatees love the yellow kayaks, and and manatees are massive animals, but they're fairly gentle and slow and stuff. But have you had any experiences with that, Randy? Is there any
I can honestly tell you that they seem to be attracted to the yellow a little bit more than the red and the blue ones. Maybe there is a underground myth that they are just going to flip you over in a heartbeat in the yellow ones.
Can I tell you where that started?
Yeah.
Where?
So we were doing the Extreme Edge Kayak Fishing Tournament Series way back in the day, okay? And Dean Slow Ride Thomas was like, he's a character. He's a nut. He guides down in Aransas Pass, Texas. He showed up and was deathly afraid of manatees. And Tom Stubblefield was in one of his kayaks, and Dean was in another kayak. And Dean had a yellow kayak. And we only had like 3-4 colors back then, remember?
Right.
When Wilderness Systems started making fishing kayaks, you could get all your kayaks in the same color as those coaches shorts that they wear up to like right to their titties. You know what I'm talking about? The male coaches, you know what I'm talking about, with the 3 buttons. You could get it in like brown, gray, yellow, or like a weird red. And so Dean had this yellow kayak, and everybody started this rumor, dude, they like yellow kayaks, right? And so Dean was like, hey, Tom, trade kayaks with me, dude. And Tom would trade with him. Dude, I'm not trading kayaks with you. And so Dean goes out that night in the middle of the next morning and launches out of Little Placido. We're in Punta Gorda, Florida, and paddles up over a hole that a manatee's laying in, and it erupted, blew him out of his kayak. He was like, nope, I'm done. I'm out. He basically walked his kayak back to the bank. And so then it just kind of perpetuated itself. But then again, I think they actually might be. But I remember we were at a tournament. We were giving Dean a whole bunch of, Dean a real hard time. And basically, I think that's where that rumor started. And we just
I think honestly that a lot of eco tours down here don't have yellow kayaks.
Yeah. And I'll tell you another place we started. Jeff Suber had a yellow tarpon and ran up on some manatee. And we're like, dude, you were in a yellow kayak. And it's kind of one of them things where you only need a tiny sliver of truth and a rumor, and then people will naturally connect them together. And then after that, it's off to the races. But
there you go.
I've had them come up and scratch on my boat no matter what color it is. You know what I mean? And I just remain calm. It's just like being in a bar in the South. If a big old girl comes up and starts scratching on you, you just kind of lean into it a little bit and wait for it to be over. If you react too much, it'll be worse.
It's a worse situation.
It's a worse situation. So.
Well, like you said with Dean, though, that's the worst part is when you spook them, right? It's one thing if you both know each other are there and it's kind of mutual terms, but when they sleep, they lay there and
there's
paddle over them and spook them, and then it's just
there's a guy named Jerry down in Florida that paddles an ocean kayak prowler. So his board name back in the forum days used to be FL Jerry or FL Prowler Jerry, right, or something like that. It had his name, Prowler, and Florida in it, right? So I remember he posted this story, and back then you couldn't just go live and do a video, so you had to type everything out. He posted this account of his encounter with a group of manatees where he was paddling through a flat in the dark, paddled over one of the holes, rubbed one of them's back, and they blew up out of the hole, but they blew his kayak up in the air, and I either flipped his kayak or flipped him, and he landed on his feet in the flat, and like it was an absolute yard sale. But he was typing this thing out like I was paddling through the inky dark waters and blah, blah, blah. And I'm not kidding you, bro. I was sitting there with a paper towel, wiping tears out of my eyes, reading this whole story. And it's kind of funny when you see these posts on social media, first ever kayak manatee encounter. I'm like, no, there's been about 15 of them 20 years ago, 15 years ago. So
Right on.
I'd forgotten about the old manatee encounters. Man, you're taking me like all the way down, memory road. So
Yeah, exactly.
what was the first kayak you had out of the sit-in side Pongo that you would have considered your first like purpose-built fishing kayak?
Yeah, it was a red tarpon, Wilderness Systems tarpon 140, and
Right.
And it was, like you said, Michigan, right? There's salmon, there's Great Lakes, there's Lake St. Clair. If bass is your thing, well, those big bodies of water, like the 14-foot kayak, was perfect for that. And yeah, took that thing everywhere, even TKAA, Florida, I think. So yeah, it was a fishing machine.
Fast forward to today, if you're fishing out of a fishing kayak, what's your fishing kayak of choice?
So you recognize that? That's the Commander, right? Yep. That thing is, that's a whole side story, probably a whole episode about the cult following of the Commander. But
so let me interject real quick, because you don't get to see one of those very often. We were actually watching some videos for research today. I was watching some of my old videos for ones that I need to remake, and one of them was the buying a fishing kayak, basic, intermediate, and advanced. We're watching the video, and this guy goes, "Dude, look at that Commander in the background, still in the plastic." I was like, "Yeah." But I bought back from a guy that's a fan the original Commander 120 that I designed, because I sold it, or no, I didn't sell it. I gave it to John Hipsher I think I traded him for some Yak Attack stuff. John Hipsher at Yak Attack. John sold it to this guy. This guy runs into me at a boat ramp in Virginia and goes, "Hey, does that kayak look familiar?" And I was like, "Yeah, it's Commander 120. He's like, "No, but does that boat look familiar?" And I looked at it and I was like, "Oh yeah, I think I might have did that anchor trolley." But when I
is that the green one, right? Wasn't it green?
I did a bunch of anchor trolleys. It was the first camo, but it was kind of muted, so it looked more green, because the oven was so cool that it hadn't even warmed up enough to get the colors mixed up good. That's how original that boat was. So I bought that boat back. But that boat above Chris's head right there, or that boat right there, that's actually the first design project that I was working on with Wilderness Systems, where I had built up enough credibility that they said, "Okay, like, you can be involved." And so there's a guy named Bob McDonough, one of the best designers in the game. If you Google best fishing kayak designers, there's a really nice article that I think paddling.com wrote. Bob's listed amongst those guys. And that boat is still a powerhouse. In fact, I picked up a Native Slayer FX12 2 days ago, just because I love that boat so much, and they don't make that boat anymore. So now I'm going to promote the Native Slayer because it's the only thing close to it. But that was the boat that I got to go to OR, and I got to stand there. And when it got unveiled, just seeing people's reactions to it, and it was like my baby. It was like my first, like, the high-low seat. A lot of people don't realize this. That's actually the first high-low seat in kayak fishing. Jackson gets a lot of credit for it because they had the first high-low seat that went from high to low. But that's the first fishing kayak that had a low seat. You folded it down and tucked it, and then you set up high, so it made it easy to stand up and sit down. But it's crazy you still have that boat, man. That thing.
Yeah, I got a group of friends that, like, if we see one for sale on like Facebook Marketplace or somebody, like you said, at a boat ramp or something, it is like you instantly like, "Oh my God, there's one for sale. How far is it?"
I tried to buy the mold from Confluent, and they can't even find it. I'm like, how can you not find it? One day they're going to come across it like that Han Solo thing, in Star Wars, where his face is smashed to the thing. And they're going to be like, "What is this?" And hopefully I can run it down. And that boat could just take a couple of little tweaks. Well, the couple of little tweaks would be the ultimate FX12. So I'm just going to do a review video of it and start fishing out of it, because it's pretty close. And honestly, it's better because it's more modernized, and they did some things that Confluence wouldn't really let me do back then. Because everything had to be, okay, it's a fishing kayak, but the wreck people still have to like it. That was the whole compromise back then,
Yeah, it was the hybrid. It was half canoe, half kayak. So it had to stay true to some of that stuff.
It's just such a good boat, man. I love that boat, I loved it. Loved it so much that Sherry McKenzie, who was the marketing director for Confluence, banned me from fishing from it my last 2 years, because she said, "You only fish from that boat,"
Right.
And I'll talk about the major reason, and I'll talk about that in the video when I do the review of the Ultimate. But the main reason it's such a good boat is you're actually standing in the bottom of it.
Mhm.
And so because you're standing in the bottom of it and you have, your leg is touching the side of the gunnel, you have 3 points of contact, but you're also down low. When we're standing on a sit on top kayak, we're standing on top of the kayak, right? So you've got 9 to 11 inches of gunnel. And so that's how high you're standing above the hull of the boat. Within the Commander and the Ultimates, you're standing down in the bottom of the boat. And it's just a much more forgiving stability too, because you're down low. You can get out of balance and get your balance back because you got that contact with your leg, and because you're down below the waterline. It's just I grew up in Louisiana. It reminded me of a plastic Piro, and I told them I wanted to design a Piro, and they said nobody will ever buy that crap.
Well,
And,
no, at first they said, "What's a Piro?"
Yeah,
And then
exactly.
oh yeah, okay, yeah, we don't understand.
Pierogi, is that a potato? One of the
Right.
actually asked me if that was like a dumpling. I had to look
Right.
at who she was talking about, because I'm from the
Yeah.
South. I've heard of a
Right.
kind of pierogi. But yeah,
yeah, Polish food.
that's pretty cool that you still have that boat, man. That's awesome.
Yeah, well, so here's another kind of related to that. I think what was underappreciated maybe then, but kind of comes to light now is lightweight, right? Like,
Oh,
look at how heavy boat, and really to answer your question really quickly, like, so my other boats on the trailer right now, they're ready to go. Like, what I fish out of mostly right now is my Recon 120 HD. I pedal that, right? And I love it, and it's versatile, where I can do a little bit of everything with it. But I was scared of that weight, right? I was scared of big, heavy boats. But like I said, so look at the way the industry has evolved, and PAs and all these big, heavy boats, and I think that a lightweight 55-pound kayak, a lot of people want that or need that, right? Look at like what Hobie's done with the Lynx and the inflatable, the I-11 and that kind of stuff. Like I've been saying that for a couple of years, but I think the pendulum's going to start swinging back that way a little bit. That people don't want 150-pound kayaks, and that's great. They have all kinds of features and the comforts and all the things are really nice, but there's something to be said for a really lightweight kayak. And that was my like kind of pitch when I do seminars and talk about like kayak fishing and try to introduce new people to the sport is, there's no place you can't go, right? Like you said, you go offshore and chase, sailfish and all kinds of big stuff. Randy has all that kind of saltwater and stuff down by him. But the heart and soul of kayak fishing is going where other anglers can't, going where boats can't. And a lightweight, something you can literally kind of put that on your shoulder or a cart or whatever and go some distances and bushwhack. And Michigan is a great place for that. We do that a lot. And maybe I would love to see that. I would love to see the pendulum swing back a little bit and start seeing more lightweight, feature-rich kayaks.
Before we got ready for the show, Austin was out in the yard, and we picked him up a new trailer from On the Water Innovations. Like I drove over and got it, and that Ultimate was on top of the thing, and he reached up and just pushed it, and it went shoop and shot right off the back of the thing. And he's like, "Oh man, that thing's light." But you're so used to these heavy, and I'm not kidding you. He just barely pushed it, and it shot off the back of the trailer, hit the ground, flipped over. And he's like, "Oh, dude," I'm like, "You're just not used."
Maybe he's a superhero and he's just discovering his like superpowers or something. Maybe it's just
you're just not used to those boats that are that light anymore,
Yeah.
And it's funny. We're saying the pendulum swinging back in the other direction, but here's the thing. We're the pendulum. Like all of the young, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed out there at 2:00 in the morning, me, Kayak Kevin, Rick Burnley, and all these guys just going 5 miles offshore and fishing for Kobe and all that. And, we're still, a lot of us are still doing that kind of stuff, but we're all also getting older. The original group of kayak fishermen that were in that initial wave, at least in my group, we're about to be 50. Jim Sammons is already like 72. You know what I'm saying? I'm just kidding. I think Jim's in his mid 50s, but we're getting older. So we're going to be wanting those types of boats. And I think because we were the original, drivers of the sport. We can be the original. We can be the drivers of the sport in that other direction. Because I can remember a lot of baby boomers at the time when I first got into kayak fishing. Like when we did the Ride 135, oh, it's just too heavy. You know, one of your favorite human beings on the planet, you know, Bill Schultz, was the big time. Like it's got to be lighter. It's got to be lighter. It's got to be lighter. And I get it. You know, he was in his 60s when we were in our 20s, I think, and he was like a pioneer of kayak fishing up in the Wisconsin area, and he was already saying that, but we didn't get it because we were young dudes just cleaning, jerking our kayak on top of our head and pressing it and putting it on top of trucks and stuff, and it didn't matter. But you get older, you start thinking about that stuff, and your kids start getting older, and you're carrying multiple kayaks. You don't want, you know, 60 70 pound base model, and by the time you rig it out, it's 100 and 30 140 pounds. He was rigging up the rack and roll with a couple of kayaks to go deer hunting with his buddy. I'm like, dude, you can't put that mumuch weight on that trailer. Oh, you carry 2 kayaks all the time. I'm like, but that was back when they weighed like 55 pounds. You know what I mean? Now they weigh 112 115 pounds. You can't put all that weight on that little bitty carriage trailer. Yeah, man. So this was the whole purpose of this show, was to just kind of go down memory lane a little bit and talk. We connected a couple weeks ago when I called you to chat and catch back up, and doing my own personal, going back and just connecting with people that mean a lot to me, that maybe we've grown apart. And I told you that in private, and now I'm telling you that in public. So we kind of reconnected. And while we're on the phone, I was like, so what are you doing these days? He's like, well, you remember when I met you at ICAST and I had those business cards? I was like, yeah. He's like, yeah, I'm doing that full time. I'm like, you're doing what full time? He's like, I'm doing the net thing full time. I'm like, you're doing that full time? He's like, 100%. And I just remember, for whatever reason, when you told me the name of the company, I thought it was Twisted Twigs. I had Twisted Twigs stuck in my head. So when I got home, I was Googling it. Don't Google Twisted Twigs.
Don't do that. Don't do that.
I'm just telling you, don't do that. Don't Google it. Just like when I tell people don't Google blue waffles, and then they text me, dude, and I'm like, I told you not to. Don't do it. But I couldn't find it. And then when we reconnected, you're like, it's Broken Twig. I was like, oh, that makes a lot more sense. So look,
I was hoping you would call it that my mistake today in doing our podcast, because I wanted to call you like Chet Hooper or something like that,
Today I got a box, and Chris said, hey, I want to send you something for you and your son for your birthday. And I was like, well, our birthdays are both in October, but we're also not opposed to early birthday presents. So he's like, dude, I'll get something out right away. So we got the box in today. And the reason that I wanted to do it early is because while we're up in Wisconsin, Austin's like, because, we're big fans of the leverage landing net from Yak Attack. That's the primary net that I use. And I'm sponsored by Yak Attack, love Yak Attack, all that good stuff. But I also love innovation, and I love entrepreneurialism, and I love the concept. But Austin, on that trip we just took, was like, we should start getting some hockey tape or tennis racket tape or something and start putting it on the handles so that when they're wet, you can grip them. And I was like, I'm going to call Chris. So I called you up. You're like, so here it is. These are the nets that we got. I didn't even realize this from looking at the website until I saw it in person, but that's a hockey puck, like, duh. But you don't recognize that from the pictures, but you probably would if you're a hockey fan. But man, the quality of this thing, the fact that the net is rubberized, the application of it is just bad to the bone. Austin was talking about the gaff as soon as he got it. He's like, man, I'm gonna. What'd you say about this one? Jump on in there. What'd you say you're gonna do?
I didn't know they made bass gaffs.
He's like, I'm gonna go out there and gaff a bass. That ought to go viral. But man, this thing is balanced.
I'm not gaffing a bass.
It's clean. It's unbelievably well. I mean, everything about it, bro. And then the net quality, everything about it. So talk to us about the company. Talk to us about what was the mindset behind it. How did it start? And how do you end up here where this is what you do full time, right? You're 100%.
Yeah. I'm in my shop. I do this all day long.
So talk to us about the genesis to where you are now of, how you took one of your passions, merged it with another passion, and turned it into a company, man. I love it.
Yeah, thank you. And that's how I've been kind of describing it, over the past year and a half, almost 2 years that I've been doing this full time is, yeah, I'm lucky that I've been able to make a living combining, my two passions together. Not unlike what you did with kayak bass fishing, when you started that. And it just look at my last name, right? Like, I'm from Michigan, that's my last name. Like, I'm destined to play hockey, right? So, and I played hockey my whole life. It's great sport, and now I'm in the stage of my life where my kids play hockey, and I coach them, and so basically from September through May or June, I'm at the hockey rink like 6 times a week, and it's great. I love it. I'm a very lucky person. But growing up in hockey culture and playing hockey, right? Like, grab like a hockey stick here, right? And this one's pretty raw, right? Some dude had this, taped it up and stuff, put his knob on it and his grip. Well, this is a carbon fiber, hockey stick. This is a $250, $300 hockey stick. And then this happens, right? Like, it's the nature of hockey, right? You're slapping at the puck, you're slapping at guys, you're cross-checking, all that kind of stuff. Hockey sticks break. And it was just a shame that as I was playing, and I still play, I played hockey this morning actually. As I played hockey and would buy, like $100 sticks or my kids, and they break, I'm like, why am I throwing this away? It's such a shame. It's really well built carbon fiber material. And so then, like kayak anglers, right? A lot of us like to tinker in the garage and kind of build a better mousetrap and kind of play those games. And I started to do that. And again, like you and Randy, right? Like, you get picky about your baits or your equipment or things like that. And I've always kind of been like that with nets, right? Like, I've gone through dozens and dozens of nets over the years, trying to find one that had everything I wanted. And so, necessity is the mother of invention type of thing, and just started tinkering with it. And I'm like, this would actually make a really good handle for a net. Traditional, net handles are round. Well, this is weird because it's kind of rectangular square, and this is a dumb luck thing. Like, it actually fits your hand better. You know what I mean? It doesn't spin in your hand. And then, and again, it's hard to convey this over the podcast, but you guys know, because you have them in your hands there. The hockey sticks are kind of like a grippiness to it, right? Like, it's a rubber, which is designed on purpose, right? When you slide your hand up and down as you're playing hockey. Well, that translates perfect to wet environments, right? To grab a wet net handle, like you said with Austin, right? That's really grippy, even when it's wet. And so I just started to kind of tinker and play with it, and said, like, I think I have something here. And produce prototypes and go to net some fish with them and kind of play with it more and more. And just started to realize that this is kind of a pretty cool thing I have here. And maybe I can take this and, like you said, become an entrepreneur, or like take this from a garage hobby to something, and, put the nets in hands of my friends that fish a lot and get their feedback. And it just has snowballed into a really cool thing. And like you said, we do gaffs and bait nets, which tend to be a little bit more saltwater.
I thought you did this to me because you're trying to say something about the size of fish.
Right, exactly. Like, you can net those 10-inch bass that you catch all day long with that.
It's crazy how tacky, and like you said, it's not going to translate through the podcast and probably even not through the video, but it's crazy how tacky. Like, I'm going to show you. Like, you put that against your hand and just push, it doesn't slide. It's a weird tacky, you know what I mean? And obviously that makes sense, because even though you're playing on ice, you're sweating, you know what I mean? You're wet, and having that sweat run down your hands, even though they got the big mitts and all that kind of stuff, it obviously has to translate to tackiness. And I think it probably even tacks up a little better on bare skin than it would on, a glove. But it's honestly like one of those, like, how the hell did somebody not think of this sooner? And like, the best companies are those, and the best products are those, how did somebody not think of this sooner, products. So, man, hats off to you, man, for taking something and running with it, being able to combine, two passions. So one question that I had, because again, I'm ignorant to the hockey thing. We don't have a lot of that down south, other than going and watching a bunch of LeMeissures and like names we can't pronounce. Can I buy a vowel? People. Not a lot of the teams in the South have people from the South on them. You know what I'm saying? But could they not just put a hockey stick head back on it? Is that not doable?
Yeah. And that's a great question. Yeah. Originally these are called one-piece sticks. I mean, this one is broken. You can see kind of the jagged edge there, but normally it's all one piece. The blade and the handle and shaft and everything are all one piece. It's all, carbon fiber. But back in the day before those, so the transition between wood sticks, right, that kind of everybody knows, like wood hockey sticks, right, were around for 75, 80 years. They were two-piece sticks where you would actually do that. Like typically the blade of a hockey stick breaks first because that's what's touching the ice, that's what's hitting the puck, that's what hit skates and that kind of stuff. So they would make it where you could, if the blade broke, you could heat it up and this would expand and the glue melts, and then you pop it out and put a brand new one in, let it cool, and go about your business. But the problem is, just like really other piece of equipment in sports, golf clubs and fishing rods actually is probably a perfect metaphor or analogy. When it's one continuous piece, it has a much different feel than being two separate pieces, right?
Yeah, see, I was that ignorant that I didn't even know that. I thought the head was a separate piece, even in fiber.
And so that was a thing in the industry for a little while, and then I don't know if it was advances in manufacturing or whatever, but they make these one pieces now, and like I said, this gets thrown away. This goes right in the dumpster and gets thrown away, and I love that. And again, I'm not going to take credit for it because I kind of fell into this, and some of this is dumb luck, but I love that I'm able to, every net that I make, I keep the stick out of a landfill. You know what I mean? Like it's recycling. It's a feel good story. Even like you said, Chad, even if you're not deeply immersed in hockey culture, it's still cool that that a product is upcycling or recycling something that's destined for a landfill.
But man, these things are so nice. Like, this is going to sound bad. Like, I almost don't want to take this thing fishing. It's so freaking nice.
Well, here's the funny side story too, right? So like I said, it was
nice this thing is, guys. I mean, it's like, God, for y'all that are watching and see the video, this thing is
you can see the carbon fiber weave on some of them. And I love the graphics, right? So it still has the character of a hockey stick, right? So like what it is. But so here's a side story, like playing with prototypes and getting them out there and putting them to use, kind of field testing, that type of stuff. And I was doing a photo shoot. I was trying to take some pictures of my first one, and I'm on the shore, and it's this rocky, clear water. It's really pretty. And I'm setting the net in the shallow water to take some photos. And I'm like kind of pushing it in the water. And I'm like, why is this stupid thing floating? And I'm like, well, wait a minute, like, dumbass, like, holy cow, it floats. Like, this floats. Like, what a perfect feature for a fishing net. So, and then now there's a big tag on it that says floats, right? So people know like that's a feature, when you buy the net. And kind of like you said, Chad, back to the beginning, it's a really cool thing and a cool concept, but I didn't want it to be a novelty, right? I didn't want it to be something that you hang on your wall and say, oh, look, a fishing net made out of a hockey stick. And that's why we call them premium, premium fishing nets, premium products. I could go cheap and use a different netting material for the basket, but I didn't. I wanted the full silicone rubber, the grips and things like that. Like all the features of it are premium because I'm picky about my nets. I want it to be a good, high quality net.
It's literally the first thing.
First thing I said when it came out of the box, I was like, oh, he actually used a good,
So two things, right? It's better for the fish. Their slime coat
first
and
thing
releasing it, and then getting treble hooks out, right? If you've ever thrown a jerk bait with 3 treble hooks in it and it gets in the net, if it's one of those rubber coated nylon nets, they're awful. But this makes it a lot easier to get those.
Oh, it's in there. You're pretty much cutting the net in a lot of cases. Because what a lot of people don't know is that's twisted nylon. So when your barb goes through there, it's going through like 100 twisted fibers. Getting it out of there is almost impossible. And with that, all you got to do is shake the net a little bit and shake your rod, and it just comes right out.
Exactly. Well, and you don't lose 10 minutes to,
dealing with it.
Yeah, dealing with it, missing out on fish.
Floating down a river, not paying attention, getting pushed into a strainer or something like that.
Right.
But
so
man,
Austin,
changing hand position, sticking it under his armpit. Man, this is nice. And like netting fish out of the air and,
Yeah.
So, thank you so much, man. I really, really, really appreciate it. You've already offered to do something for KBF members, so we're going to work that out to where there's, some type of discount or coupon or something. I'll get you guys that information, send it out through the members only portal. Like always, it's a members only benefit. But Chris, man, what else is there? Anything else you want to talk about with the company? Because that was the main reason I brought you on here. But fortunately, unfortunately, we spent over 3/4 of the show going down memory lane, which I thoroughly enjoyed, and hopefully you have as well, and hopefully the folks listening, do also, because there was some kayak fishing history here. But yeah, man, anything else that you would like to share, man? Throw it out there.
No, I appreciate it. Yeah, it'd be silly of me not to plug my business as being on your podcast. Do me a favor, Austin. Grab your net and turn it around. Yeah, your net, the one that I think that was your dad's, the one behind you on the couch.
Oh, so now we know what's up.
Green.
Yeah.
Got me red.
Yeah. So look, there's a name on there. Can you show that to the camera? So those of you that don't know, yeah. So that
No
that
way.
Nino,
Nice.
Yeah, that's Nita Ryder, who you guys are Nashville Predators fans, right? Tennessee. There is hockey in the South, but he just recently got traded in the offseason or signed a new contract. But anyways, plays for that's a pro stick. You can tell by the way they put the name on there. And then some brands say like Pro Stock, that's a Bauer stick, and it doesn't say that, but you can tell that it's Nita Ryder's stick. So that was a game used NHL stick. That's Nino's stick. So
What?
yeah,
Used to play for the Preds.
yeah, he plays right now for the Preds.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Hockey too.
yeah,
I go to the games, but it's just for the fights.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I'm the opposite. I'm watching an NHL game and I see somebody break a stick. I'm like, oh yeah, I want that.
Yeah, give me that stick.
That's mine.
So this is what I asked him earlier. Is every stick from a broken stick?
Yeah, every single one. Like, see, it's kind of hard to see. I got bins,
I
I got
see.
bins, and yeah, I mean, they're broken sticks. Yeah, I got a message today so that's not half, but a lot of my job is spent networking and building relationships. Absolutely. Zamboni guys, equipment managers for teams are like my best friends. And I got a text message today like, hey, Chris, I got about 60 sticks for you. Like, awesome. I'll be there tomorrow. I'll pick them up from you.
And it's never going to stop happening, right? It's not like they're going to stop breaking sticks,
Right. Well, and it's funny. My seasons are a little opposite of each other, right? And I apologize if I'm getting long-winded and
oh, you're good, man. It's right
here, but yeah, if you think about the season, right, hockey is obviously a winter sport, and fall, winter, and into the spring, breaking a lot of sticks, and then fishing, obviously, especially here in Michigan, is more spring, summer, fall. But yeah, so a lot of my job is hunting down broken sticks, and yeah, every single one of these was used at some point, had a whole life, prior to being a fishing net. It's kind of cool to think about too, right? It's got character. That's what I like to say. Yeah, somebody used it. So maybe it was a beer league guy like me. Maybe it was an NHL, Nashville Predator, like the one you have. But yeah, there's
a couple questions in the chat group.
I got to ask you this one question before we jump to that.
Go for it.
Because this is the question that I ask every entrepreneur who gets into fishing, and you just kind of hit the nail on the head. So I'm gonna frame it up and then let you answer the question. I know when I first got into the business side of it, I found myself fishing less than I ever did before because I had a fishing business. You just actually set it up almost perfectly by saying that the seasons are off kilter. But does that mean that when you're sitting there in your shop building nets that you're wishing you were fishing? Is that how that works now?
100% hit the nail on the head. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, like get a job in fishing. It'll be great. Combine your passions. And
yeah.
I talk about fishing a lot more than I get to actually do it, but I'm still a very lucky guy. So yeah, but you're 100% right. That happens to a lot of us, and
But you still get to do it, because I tell people all the time, when I'm not fishing, I'm thinking about fishing. When I'm not fishing, I'm talking about fishing. When I'm not talking about fishing and thinking about fishing, I'm fishing. And then when I'm sleeping, I'm dreaming about fishing and all that. And it's an obsession. It's like if fishing left track marks, my arms would look like a heroin addict. You know what I mean? Yeah. It just would be how it is. So I think a lot of us that have been doing it this long and then carry that passion over into wanting to make something to give back to the sport just shows like it's in your blood. You know what I mean? So
yeah. And you know how it is, Chad, and like you still live through like the people you meet and talk to, right? So like I get, I live through my customers, right? I get pictures of like, oh my God, I got my net, I love it, and here's my first trout or first bass in it, like that kind of stuff. I absolutely love. So yeah, you're still surrounded by fishing and the passion and the people. Maybe I do a little bit less of it.
I made a joke on one of my 3 or 4 podcasts ago. I made a joke that said, I haven't caught a 10-pound bass this year. It might be the first year I don't catch one in like forever. And this guy sent me a screenshot after the podcast. He said, bro, just so you know, I caught this 10-6 and I caught it because of you. So you were right there with me. So technically you did catch one this year. I was like, you know what? That's like, heck yeah, that's awesome.
Exactly. That's a great feeling, isn't it?
That's the way, that's the living vicariously, simultaneously celebrating mutual experiences. All that's part of what makes this, community so freaking awesome.
Yeah.
Well, Randy, let's do a few questions, man.
Yeah. So Chris, there's a couple good questions here. One is, what's an ideal length for a kayak?
For a kayak? Is that for Chad?
It's like, how long is a rope? You know what I mean?
No, I'm just, one of the anglers wanted to know what's an ideal length of the net that they can go and purchase.
Oh, net. I thought you meant how long is an ideal kayak. I'm like, we could be here all night.
Yeah,
right. And that's a great question. A lot like kayaks, right? Or cars or shoes. Or there's not one that does it all. So and actually the reason I'm on here with Chad, the reason Austin and Chad have their new nets is I started to make, so the past year and a half I've been doing this, I kind of have two standard sizes. I have the full strength size, which is a little bit bigger hoop, deeper net, still the same synthetic rubber, and that's a 30-inch handle, and pretty versatile for most boat fishing, multiple species, works great for. And then I make a little bit smaller one. It's called the Quick and Light. It's a 16-inch handle, smaller head, still synthetic, full synthetic rubber basket, and great for trout, perfect for bass. And then because I'm the manufacturer, right, I do all kinds of custom stuff, right? People say, oh, I want, a really long handle. So I can do nets up to about 44 inches, really long handle here. And after that, it starts, kind of transitioning to the blade. So you can get about a 44-inch handle net out of that. But really, the custom stuff is fine. I certainly don't mind doing that for customers. But really, there was this kind of void, and that's what Chad and Austin have there. This is a new model that's going to go up on my website soon. This is like the kayak size model. And again, not that kayak fishing is kind of one thing, but especially when you talk about bass fishing, this is about the perfect size. It's a 24-inch handle. It's about a 17-inch hoop here. About 12 to 14-inch depth in the basket. And so that's new to us. And again, is a perfect size for, kayak bass fishing. If you're doing other stuff, then, there's going to be a different net that suits, the kind of the waters you fish, the species that you chase, that sort of thing. But any, obviously too long of a handle, it's going to get in your way and be cumbersome. Too short doesn't give you the reach that you want when you're landing a fish. So I find that, 20 to 30-inch handle is pretty perfect for kayak fishing.
Okay. And pretty much everything's on your website, so they can go shop through the entire product line. You mentioned that you do custom stuff, so I'm sure that all your contact info is there. Talk real quick about your social handles, and then we'll let Randy get some of these questions up here so we can get you back to making nets.
So the website is brokentwiglandingnets.com. Social media and on Instagram and Facebook are Broken Twig Landing Nets. Part of me cringes when I say that because it's more than landing nets. Obviously, that's what we started with. That's our specialty. But obviously, there's bait nets, there's gaffs for the saltwater guys. There's a little bit of everything there. And again, on Instagram and Facebook, Broken Twig Landing Nets.
Yeah, just rebrand as the Broken Twig Nets. And then people think you are a basketball team outside of Brooklyn. You know what I mean?
Right, exactly.
Yeah. Cool. So let's get a couple questions up there, Randy.
Yeah. So you have a question here. Definitely love the idea. That's great to have kayaking and the hockey nets together, the hockey sticks together. Definitely going to get one here from Michael here. But he also wanted to know: is there a way to request maybe one that is from the NHL?
Yeah. So kind of as you would imagine, anything related to professional sports is kind of a high demand and typically a low supply. So, prices are different and they're just harder to come by. Even a broken hockey stick that's going to be thrown into the dumpster still has value as sports memorabilia. So it's a little bit harder to get my hands on NHL ones, but a lot of the stuff behind me here are. So the best way to answer that question, the best way is reach out and just say, hey, my favorite team is Toronto Maple Leafs. Do you have any, player sticks from the Leafs? And I'd say, yeah, here's what I got, and I get that request all the time, right? Because hockey culture is a lot like fishing, but it's it's tend to be something you grow up in and you really relate to and you're passionate about. And so people say, oh man, I don't play anymore, but when I was a kid, I always used a Bauer stick. Do you have any Bauer ones? Like, absolutely. What colors are you looking for? That sort of thing. So it's really easy to do anything like that. So if somebody wants a favorite player stick, it might cost a little bit more. Prices are going to be relative to supply and demand, but it's pretty cool. Like Austin has there, right? To hold a net that used to be was used in NHL games. Pretty cool.
And
That's
one of the
insane.
last questions was, I think you answered it very briefly, was, do these nets float?
Yep, sure do. Yep.
Got a little tag on it that says floater. Or
There you go. Float.
Yeah. Yeah, that came from one of our dealers, a local shop here. Shout out to Ted at Lakes Area Bait Shop. He's like, dude, I'm always telling people they float. And I'm like, I should probably put a tag on there that tells people probably the best feature of it,
Especially for us and kayakers. That's definitely it. That's actually all the questions. Duke definitely did say he's all in. He's going to be getting one killer product. Detroit still sucks.
The Red Wings are rebuilding. How about that?
Nice. Yeah,
but I mean, one of the other things too is that everybody knows that these are recycled. He's getting them from the ice rinks, the professional areas, everything that he can. So if you know of an area that is that you have an ice hockey rink and that you can actually link the two up, he's always looking for more sticks to produce more products. So you can link them up. He'll provide them a box, a shipping label, everything, and have them shipped right to him. So it's an opportunity for you guys to get your local community involved in helping out Chris also.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I said, I'm a hockey dad, right? I coach my daughter, my son. If there's any fundraising stuff that I can help with, that sort of stuff, I would love to help a hockey team out or something like that. And then what Randy said, right? Like, keep these out of the garbage. If you got sticks sitting in the garage, which most hockey players do, it's kind of the nature of, you don't want to throw something out because there's some value to it. I would love to recycle this for you. And then thank you, Randy, for bringing it up. We're very close to launching a new kind of product where, again, we have a strong connection to sticks that we used, or we have memories and stuff. So there's actually going to be a box. Really, it comes as an empty box, but it'll be something you purchase from our website. You check out and you buy an empty box, and I ship it to you. There's instructions and stuff, and you simply put your old favorite hockey stick in there, ship it back to me, and then in about a week to 10 days, you get a landing net back made out of your own personal stick. So
That's all.
We're very close to being able to do that, and it's all prepaid labels and everything. So once you buy that, you check out, you're done, and like I said, you just get to wait till you get your tracking number and says your net's on the way. So that's
I got mine in my son's hockey stick sitting downstairs,
breaking their sticks just to get a net.
That's what I tell my buddies I play with. I'm like, go out there and break some sticks. Come on.
Yeah. Break some sticks.
You're not trying hard if you're not breaking your $200 hockey stick.
Man, that's crazy. Well, look, man, I appreciate you, bro. Love you like a brother, because you are.
Right on.
Yeah, man. I can't wait to have you back on in 6 months, a year, whatever you tell me. Hey, I got some new product to talk about. Let's do it. And then I'll get with you off camera. We'll talk about doing some type of promotion to give back to this knucklehead group of mob, kayak members only, businesses, members only benefit. That's why we do this, is we're growing the mob, right? Not just the member only benefits, but featuring and promoting member owned businesses like yours. So appreciate you very much, man. Have a good night. I know you're an entrepreneur, so pretty much as soon as you shut that camera off, you're going to be back in the shop, tinkering, probably building a few nets tonight before you call it an evening. So
exactly.
Yeah, man. So you guys go check him out. Check out his website. Check out his socials. That's
Thank you again.
Chris LeMeissure. And thanks for our nets, bro. We're going to definitely put them to use. Austin literally leaned over and said, I'm going to go catch fish with this right now.
Yeah,
so,
right.
Cool.
Right on. I appreciate you guys. Thank you. It's so good to be back with you guys. I like the Chad and Austin together because that's how I know you guys. So I love seeing you guys together like that. Randy, it's always a pleasure.
Always,
I appreciate you doing this. And thanks, guys. I'm really honored to be part of this. So thank you so much.
Thank you, man. Have a good night, brother.
Peace out, guys. See you.
Preach.
All right, man. Well, it's the end of the week. We got big things going on. You got the championship. You're 1 month away.
1 month. Sign up now, man. The The registration goes up to $400 on the 30th because we got to get t-shirt orders in. We got to book the venue size. We got to know how many tables to put out, how much food to order. So we're making it slightly inconvenient and costly for the people that register late because they're making it inconvenient and costly for us. So yeah, get signed up by September 30th. Trail Series Championship, Challenge Series Championship, National Championship. The links are all on the homepage of the website, kayakbassfishing.com. You scroll down, see the banner. We sent out messages to everybody. I also did a YouTube video about it last night, and there's a link in the description box. So yeah, y'all see y'all there, Paris, Tennessee, and good luck to everybody that's competing. Last event of the year before the Ambassador Series Championship, and I'll see you at that one.
There you go. All right, everybody, have a wonderful week, and we will see you again next week.
Same bad time.
Hey guys, I'm Chad Hoover with Kayak Bass Fishing. If you're looking to get in on the exciting sport of kayak fishing yourself, check out kayakbassfishing.com. Yeah! Boom! Oh, yes! What a freaking toad. So whether you want to find out more about competitive kayak fishing and kayak fishing tournaments, or just looking to learn more to make yourself a better angler, head over to kayakbassfishing.com and join today.